Hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of Talkin' Beavers as Oregon State heads down the stretch. Just 2 games remaining. The home finale against the Washington Huskies Saturday, 3 o'clock at Reser Stadium. Washington, the #1 scoring defense in the Pac-12 Conference. Oregon, though, last in the conference in total defense. So some interesting challenges ahead for Oregon State. We're glad you've joined us as we get rolling with Talkin' Beavers right now. It is great to have you with us as we take a look at the gorgeous Oregon State campus. One more opportunity for alums and fans to come back Saturday to see the football team at Reser Stadium. And we come to you, of course, from our beautiful Flat Tail Brewing Studios in Portland, along with Slade Norris, Lindsey Schnell, Mike Parker. Thanks for joining us as the Beavers get ready for the home finale. Want to talk a lot about Washington and not a whole lot about last week's game with the California Golden Bears that snapped the Beavers' 6-game winning streak in that venue. First time they've lost there since 1997. The Beavers are looking at numbers that were similar in those mid to late 90s. They had a 14-game losing streak from 96 through 98 in conference. So let's talk about the game and kind of where the Beavers sit right now heading into this home finale. Slade, go ahead. I mean, what's your sense about where the team is, the program is heading into this home finale?
You know, watching the game, I expected they'd torch us with the pass. You know, Goff is a great quarterback. He made some beautiful deep throws, but the run defense surprised me. I mean, Cal had the biggest run output in Sonny Dykes' career against us this last game. So, yeah, they didn't play well in that respect. They were missing their gaps, but I think a lot of that has to do with just guys being switched in and out so much. And the young guys, when they're playing, we had guys go down. I know with myself, I mean, back when we were playing, Vic, he was a little maverick. He wouldn't always do exactly what the defense was calling. I remember an ASU play, he was rushing the passer, didn't get there, so he dropped back and intercepted the ball.
Right.
And he could do that because he had a guy, Keaton Christic, behind him, who was used to what he was doing. He'd always play off him. They haven't developed that relationship because they've had so many guys switching in and out. And so it's a hard year. They're young, but there's a lot of positives. Guys like Jonathan Willis had a great game. Another guy, Gabe, with the interception. Coach really liked what he did on the field. So a lot of positives to take away, too.
I was in the Bay Area this weekend for Stanford, Oregon. On the plane ride home Sunday morning, there were a lot of Duck and Beaver fans, and someone got on the plane and said, I'm really mad. It was a Stanford guy, and the Duck fan goes, speak for yourself. And an Oregon State fan next to me says, I can relate to the Stanford fan and being depressed. And then the fan next to me said, and there's no hope. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, there is hope. It's just going to take a couple years. Like, we've talked about this a lot. Even if Mike Riley were here, it's not like this program would have won 10 games. Like, the roster's down. There's not a lot of talent. The Pac-12 is loaded, man, top to bottom. Like, I actually think the Pac-12 is shooting itself in the foot with this 9-game conference schedule because they're not going to make the playoff. But there's absolutely hope. Now, was it ugly Saturday? Yeah. And as Slade and I were talking about off camera, you know, Oregon State suddenly become like the team that, like, good things happen for the opponents. Like, Colorado finally wins a Pac-12 game. Cal finally gets bowl eligible. You don't want to be on the receiving end of that. But I believe that it will get better.
Yeah, and you talked about some realities there in terms of the roster and the depletion due to injury. This season for me, and my broadcast partner on the radio said, and these numbers that we look at here indicate that you see a lot of 12s there by the Beavers in some statistical categories. You'd rather be higher up than 12 in a Pac-12 conference. But Jimmy Wilson, OSU Hall of Famer, and I worked with him on the radio, said, the current state of the team is not synonymous with the current state of the program. And I think that's a shrewd observation in that what the Beavers are now and what they're going through, Slade, they're not destined to always be that. And Gary Anderson's recruiting well. His staff's recruiting well. They'll get some guys back healthy. They'll have a quarterback next year who has experience in the system. A lot of things, even going forward next year, will help this team, I think, regain some equilibrium soon.
Definitely. I mean, I think back to once again when I was playing with Coach Burton. He started, you know, 2 very young corners with Brandon and with Keenan, and they weren't good. But but that
became
year,
NFL.
that year, Nigel was saying, calm down.
Right.
These guys are going to develop into some amazing players, and they did. Both went on to the NFL, and that's what this team is going to do. They're playing a lot of young guys, one of the youngest teams in the nation, not just the conference, and they're going to develop. They have a great coaching staff. They're getting great recruits coming in. So this season, we knew it was going to be bad. Everyone knew that. It's frustrating to go through, but you had to expect that. We think it'd be this bad, maybe not this bad, but it's the future, and we have to look forward and look to the next year.
I will say this. I think that there were some fans who did not think it was going to be bad. I mean, Steve Priest sat in here last week and was like, I thought we were going to be bowl eligible, and I'm like, interesting.
Yeah.
But I think that this reminds me, you bring up a great point, and this reminds me of 2011 when they went 3-9, right? That was that was 2011. Everyone's flipping out, right? And Riley told me in 2012, he's like, look, I told guys the whole time, everyone calm down. We're just really young. We have to play so many young guys. They were so beat up that year, very similar to this year. The coaching staff is not panicking, and that's what matters. So that's what's being communicated to recruits and to guys that are in the building right now, that, hey, we're going to be fine. This is just a rough patch. So, yeah, things are going to be okay, and everyone needs to calm down.
One more point on what you said. You said the coaching staff isn't panicking, and that's so true. And nobody's turning on each other. The players aren't fighting. There isn't any fighting with that. They're still standing behind their coaches. Coaches aren't throwing the players under the bus. I do like that.
Exactly right. And Chris Peterson, it's interesting, is saying very similar things going through what they're going through in terms of no one finger pointing. They're trying to get bowl eligible, and we'll talk more about Washington later. But before we leave off the California game, as difficult as it was on some levels to watch, Lindsay, you do have a game ball.
I do, but it's going to Jared Goff, the Cal quarterback. You know, he finally gets Cal Bowl eligible for the first time since 2011. You know, there's a reason that he's going to be the first quarterback taken in the 2016 draft, provided he goes out early.
He made some beautiful throws, there's no question. And it's a bad matchup, Slade, when you have a young and depleted, injury-riddled secondary against that guy.
I mean, with Strong out, with Larry out, we knew going into that game it was going to be ugly. I mean, Goff is an amazing talent. He showed all those deep balls, the touch with his throws. It was impressive.
So who do you have?
You know what? Lucas.
Yeah, Paul Lucas.
He did a great job. I loved seeing what he did out there. He's a small guy, but he runs with great vision. I love his ability to cut and get upfield. And he has a little power to him. He doesn't go down just immediately when somebody hits him. The future for him, I think, is really bright with this program. You see him right there, put that foot in the ground and cut right upfield. And he isn't afraid to just run through the trees in there. I love what he did. I'm excited to see him grow.
There were a lot of good things, in fact, going on offense, and coming up, we will have an opportunity to hear from Nigel talking about Nick Mitchell's play. I think the Beavers score more points if Nick doesn't go down, so that's later in the show. Coming up next, how about these guys? Sonny Dykes 1-11 in his first year. Mike Leach struggled big time in Pullman, but they're going to bowl games now. The Beavers hope that could be a template perhaps for them in the young Gary Anderson era. We take a look at the Pac-12 North, and Stanford, of course, stumbling and probably losing a date in the college football playoff as a result. But look at the competition. Washington State and Oregon, and the Beavers still looking for that elusive first win. But important to look at Washington State right there in that mix as we take a look at what Gary Anderson and his staff trying to do now, and perhaps in a sense hoping to replicate some of the things that have gone on in programs that struggled early but are now bowl eligible. Coach Anderson knows it can be a struggle in the Pac-12.
First of all, I had great respect walking in and being in two Power 5 conferences and coaching in them. I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective and have great respect for both of the leagues. The Pac-12 walked in here thinking it was a great league, walk out of the first year with 2 games left knowing that it's a great league. The craziest thing that I would say about this league is you just look at the swings and the mental toughness that the kids have to be able to deal with. You look at this Washington team and Arizona, watch that game, and then go look and see exactly what takes place when Arizona plays Utah. You know, it's amazing and that's just one example. There's many examples where a team plays so well, and the other team doesn't play well, or however you want to put it, got beat badly, and then they bounce back a week later, 2 weeks later, and it completely flips off upside down. And I just don't see that in other conferences, which is a credit to this league, that if those offenses get going, you better watch out. And sometimes you get caught in a really bad spot, and other times it goes the other way, that the defenses play very, very well. And so that is unique, I think, to this league, with the ability for these kids to be able to bounce back from those situations and claw themselves back into a conference title, a bowl game, or whatever they're fighting for at this point. But very, very good coaches. I always think the sign of a really good league is when you're coaching, and if you have tendencies or you have things that work for you the week before, and they're going to do everything they can to make sure they take him away the next week, and that's exactly the case. We've gone through that a bunch this year, as far as we think we're getting where we need to be, and it's difficult for us, obviously, to sustain and maintain different types of scenarios for us. But if you trick them one week, you're not going to trick them week two, and I think that's a sign of good coaches.
That's Gary Anderson talking about the challenge in this great league as we get to our Les Schwab Quick Fix. Les Schwab doing the right thing since 1952. And these are instructive, I think, particularly with reference to Sonny Dykes, his team just getting bowl eligible. We can see just 2 years ago, the Golden Bears were 1-11. They're now at 6-4, got off to that dynamic 5-0 start. And Sonny did it by getting a quarterback that fit his system. And then Mike Leach as well, going 3-9 and now 7-3 and bowl eligible. So, I think in terms of what Gary Anderson, and we just heard Gary talk about, he's a guy that talks about sustaining and maintaining. He's doing that in terms of his own convictions about what he wants to build here.
I agree with you that the Cal is the best comparison, because Colorado and Wazoo had been down for really long stretches of time, whereas we have seen a recent history of being able to win at Oregon State, just like you had seen at Cal. But I think that another important piece with Cal is, that first year when they went 1-11 with Dykes as head coach, they were just ravaged by injuries. I believe that season they lost every defensive starter at one point during the year. So that's huge. And we talk about this Oregon State team being, depleted by injury. But the other thing that you have to remember in this conference, and Anderson touched on it, forever the Pac-12 was a stepping stone job. It was, you come here, you coach for a couple years, and then you move on to a bigger and better conference, preferably one back east. Like, that's what people thought with the Big Ten and the SEC. That's why Riley was the longest tenured coach forever at OSU. But now, and this is much of this credit is due to Larry Scott, everyone wants to be part of the Pac-12. And so it's so tough, top to bottom. McIntyre has made great strides at Colorado, and they're still really bad, but they're so much better.
And I think you see that with how the Pac-12 has been eating itself this year.
Yep.
I mean, it's so equal.
Itself.
Nobody can get out of this undefeated, and it's really going to hurt us in the long run because we don't get that bowl money with the playoff contention. But man, it's fun to watch because any given night, anything can happen, and with all the talent they have player-wise and coach-wise, Pac-12 is an amazing conference.
And hashtag Pac-12 After Dark exists for a reason.
Pretty amazing, too, what Mike Leach is doing at Washington State. Just a quick thought. He loses to Portland State and has been so good against everybody else, including the win against Oregon. I mean, they've made themselves bowl eligible, a great win over UCLA. Mike Leach has done a tremendous job.
Yeah, he has. And, what's interesting is earlier this season, before they were bowl eligible, when they were doing a good job, I was hearing from some Wazoo fans like, oh, well, is this going to be like the last couple years when we've had this good stretch and then we've fallen off? But now I think that this is a big step forward for their program. Although I will say this, there is absolutely no reason that Luke Falk should have gone back in that game. That was absolute trash. He had to crawl off the field because he was knocked unconscious.
That's a discussion and an important one for another time.
I hope Alex Brink is watching this.
I hear you, and I appreciate you bringing it up. When we come back, we are going to talk about the Beavers at the next level. There's a lot of guys making big-time marks in the National Football League. The best receiver, perhaps, in the history of the conference right there, and Brandon Cooks is just one of them. Beavers in the NFL next. Talking Beavers rolling on. Chris Peterson bringing his Washington Huskies to Reser Stadium this Saturday. We'll have more on Washington trying to win its last two and get to a bowl game. But first, we want to let you know what a great chance you have to be part of our CSN Fan Zone Fan Rewards program. All you need to do is go to csnnw.com/fanzone and join to win prizes monthly, including iTunes gift cards, Amazon gift cards, and CSN merchandise. So, indeed, get into the CSN Fan Zone. A lot of fans are very excited about, if not necessarily the way the 2015 Beaver football season has played out, how about the Beavers in the National Football League? There's a lot of them, and they're playing well.
Yeah, I love it. Poyer got a pick the other day, his first career interception, which I think that probably good fans were paying attention to this. When Cleveland played, who does Mark
Tennessee.
Thank you. Tennessee. Earlier in the season, Poyer picked Mariota,
Yes, he did.
but then it got called back because of a penalty.
It's my kind of Beaver, still picking on a duck. It's great.
Going Jake Cookus on him.
But yeah, and Brandon Cooks, you said as we were going to break, Mike, that Brandon Cooks might be the best player the best receiver in Pac-12 history. I mean, I love Brandon Cooks.
He's in the
I don't know about
conversation.
that.
He's in the conversation.
But yeah, all Saints, all from Mike Riley's Oregon State teams, and he's just, I'm not surprised at all that he's making plays in the league, Slade. How about you?
I know my dad's really happy because my dad stole him in the draft in our fantasy football family league, and so he's been real happy the last couple of weeks. Brandon's hands, his explosiveness, his toughness.
Separation after the catch is huge for him.
And just his ability to run routes and know where to find the open spaces. He's extremely hard to guard. I'm so glad I wasn't a corner lining up against him.
And he's not the only one, of course, too. I mean, Brandon's numbers speak for themselves, but Boom, watch him gets his sack. You've got Keenan Lewis, Brandon Browner, and, of course, Brandon Cook. So it is, the Saints are easy to root for. They're having a tough season as well, but there's a lot of great representation of Beaver Nation.
Offensively, they're doing well.
Another thing about when I look at this list and I see all the Beavers who are playing well, and Slade and I have talked about this, that you want alums like this, right? You want them to have success because kids see that. Kids see, oh, Brandon Cooks went to Oregon State. Maybe I can go to Oregon State. They can get me to the league. But Slade, you've told me that one thing about this staff that you love is they're really reaching out to alums and trying to get guys involved. Like, I'm just waiting to see all these people just hanging out in the new football center.
Back when I went down to talk to the team, Coach Anderson, the biggest emphasis he made was how he wants to get the alums involved. And not just the players, but all the guys that used to play. Not the guys just went to the NFL, but he wants everybody still involved in the program. That was a big emphasis he wanted to change because he thought that in that area there was some slacking the last couple years, and he wants to bring everybody back in, make sure the program is seen as strong. So when, like you said, the players come in, they see all these ex-guys, and it's exciting. I know from a recruit standpoint, if I were to see that, it'd be something that was a positive. And
it fits with the family atmosphere that Oregon State loves to sell, and that is the biggest selling point of Corvallis.
And the walk-on, you mentioned Gabe Ovgard earlier, a walk-on from Klamath Falls getting his first career interception. Our own Jordan Poyer getting his first career interception, a young man from Astoria. And so the Beavers have done historically a great job in the state, and Kalani Sitake and others say that the state of Oregon, there's more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Kalani has said that quite a bit, that he believes that the Northwest, you can mine and you can find some gold here. And he said openly that, like, Poyer was one of his favorite players in the Pac-12 the last few years, and we've got an Oregonian right there too. So yeah, I think they're to be found, and this staff is excited at the challenge of finding them.
They echoed that exact same thought to me. They want to dominate this state. Washington and Oregon, they think are completely looked over recruiting-wise, and they think that Oregon State has missed on some players the last couple of years. So they want to dominate internally first before they go look externally for players.
Well, Slade, you mentioned Nigel Burton earlier, and Nigel, of course, coached at Oregon State and helped develop some cornerbacks who became part of that list. Keenan Lewis still playing. Nigel has a breakdown coming up. He's not breaking down. It's Nigel Burton's breakdown about the Beavers. Nigel, what do you have for us?
Hey, Mike, coming up next, we're going to talk about quarterbacks and the 3 phases of great quarterback play. You don't want to miss it.
It's time for Nigel Burton's weekly segment. Burton's Breakdown is brought to you by Standard TV and Appliance. Standard TV and Appliance setting the standard since 1947. Nigel.
So the Beavers come away from Cal disappointed. And the quarterbacks are struggling mightily in terms of the 3 phases of great quarterback play. I used to always tell my quarterbacks, listen, the 3 phases are: 1, you have to be decisive. Know where you're going to go with the football pre-snap, and then if things change, make sure you know exactly where to go in terms of where your check down is. 2, you have to be able to anticipate where your receiver is going to be and make sure the ball is out of your hand before he comes out of his break. And then 3, obviously you have to be accurate. Let's take a look at the in-focus Montopad collaboration that works so we can see where Nick Mitchell's really struggling with the 3 phases of great quarterback play. Now here, against Cal, you can see that the offensive coordinator does a great job calling a simple play for him. And all it's going to be is a simple hitch with the corner bailing out. But Nick Mitchell waits until the receiver is actually out of his break to deliver the football, and the end result is a pass breakup for Cal. He needs to actually get that ball out before the receiver starts to lower his hips and come out of his break. Now, later on, Dave Baldwin, 3rd and 6, calls another easy pass combination for him. Basically, what's going to happen is he's going to have 3 guys all sitting on hitches right at the first down marker. All he's going to do is take a look at this safety. If he expands, hit inside. If he moves inside, hit the outside. Very simple thing for him to do. But the problem is he's not decisive. As he drops back, he actually pump fakes. He had the right idea, but he didn't trust himself to deliver the football where it needed to go. He has to make sure that if he's going to improve his quarterback play, that he masters those 3 phases of being decisive, anticipate the routes, and make sure you're accurate.
I don't really have any particular dispute with Nigel on those factors. He did, though, Nick Mitchell, I thought, showed what Chris Peterson says. He's tired of the word flashes in his program. We see flashes. He says flashes is a euphemism for inconsistency, and that may be true. But Nick Mitchell did, I thought, Slade, make some good plays wherein he was decisive, he did anticipate, and he was accurate. Where do you think Nick fits on those 3 Nigel categories?
On those 3, he's still got a lot of work to do, but a lot of that comes with experience,
right,
with decisive and anticipation. You know, that comes with being out there and seeing things, and he hasn't started a ton of games this season, so I really think the jury is still out on that. And then when you aren't the first 2, of course accuracy is going to be hard, because then you're trying to hurry and rush throws, and it's impossible to throw accurately when you're stressed like that. I think a lot of that too has to do with his release. He has a real slow release, and so even if he is decisive and he's anticipating, with that slow release, the ball is still coming out late anyway. So I think that's something he can work on in the offseason, is that long wind-up that he has. Right. He can develop that.
We've spent this show talking about the chemistry on defense, right? That, you know, Vic could make plays because he knew what Christic was going to do behind him. And then we talked about Brandon Cooks being one of the best receivers in the history of the Pac-12. Why was Brandon Cooks a good receiver? Because Sean Mannion threw to him forever. They had timing down. You know, that's something that's developed over time. And as you look at Nick Mitchell, you make that reference to Washington. You know, it's similar. Like they're young quarterbacks, him and Jake Browning, and it's going to take time. And yeah, I think they're obviously in different spots right now, program-wise. But it's okay if he's inconsistent. Like it's not his responsibility as the new guy to be making plays. The big thing is he needs to not turn the ball over. That's what when you're young, that's what you're on you. And
in that respect, he did a good job cleaning things up from the UCLA game, where he had 4 turnovers and none against a team that really ball hawks and thrives on taking the football away. So in that respect, I thought Nick Mitchell grew, and even his decisions to run the football and the run that he slid outside Stormbar's Woods, the ceiling block to get him in the end zone for the touchdown, Slade. I still think, flashes, euphemism or not, we're seeing enough of them to think that he is a guy that can be helpful to this team in the quarterback battle next year.
I think definitely he has a lot of promise. It's just, like I said, the experience thing. And I love how you said the athleticism. I mean, everybody thought Seth, legs, Nick, arm. But really, Nick has a little of both, and he's able to get those first downs. He's a tough guy, doesn't mind getting hit. There's a couple throws in there where he sat in the pocket and took a good one, but still delivered an accurate throw. So those are the flashes you like to see, and just hope you see more as the season goes on.
When you look at Nigel's those three big things about quarterback play. The thing that Mike Riley used to talk about forever, and he is a good quarterback coach, we can all agree on that, is you have to be tough.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be willing to sit in the pocket and take a hit in order to deliver a pass. And I think that Nick has some of those characteristics. I think there's a lot to build on.
He took a big hit on the touchdown pass to Noah Togiai. Unfortunately, was knocked out, and that brings us to the situation, a rather dire one in terms of depth at quarterback. With Seth Collins now officially out for the season, Coach Anderson says he'll be back ready to go in January. So that creates some real challenges on that depth chart at that position.
Did we not anticipate this? Like I said all season, this is going to be a problem if he gets hurt. They don't have depth behind him. You know, he is out, he's rehabbing, been working at practice to get healthy. But yeah, the bottom line is that we've talked about this, that some quarterbacks left, you know, with Luke Del Rio. They don't have a ton behind him. I think that Marcus McMaryion will get some time again. But yeah, it's just not a position right now that is one of strength for Oregon State.
And schematically, they can use a lot of the Wildcat package, too, to take some stress off that quarterback position. There's stuff that you can do, but it's going to be tough.
Coach Baldwin has been as creative as I think humanly possible in dealing with a lot of these things, and he's going to need to be again perhaps as the weekend goes along, and this weekend and the following week against Oregon. Darryl Garretson, a transfer, is waiting in the wings, and he's getting a lot of valuable reps right now running the first team offense with some of the young guys rather than just scout team stuff. That he'll be certainly in the mix next year. Coming up on Talkin' Beavers, we're going to learn a little bit more about a quarterback who is growing on the job, and Jake Browning and the Washington Huskies. Chris Peterson has had a year that he says has been very frustrating, but there have been flashes. We'll see some of those next. We take a look at the drafted dogs. These are dynamic players from last year's Washington team. 4 of those guys taken among the top 44 picks. Overall, Chris Peterson losing 7 starters on defense, but Pete Kwiatkowski, the outstanding coordinator, has come back with another tremendous defensive team. And to that end, it is time for the Toyota of Portland on Broadway tune-up. As we welcome you to the Mondo Pad, Slade Norris here to talk about the 4 most dangerous players on this Washington team. And a cursory glance, Slade, tells me that 3 defenders and 1 offensive player. That maybe tells you what you need to know about this Washington football team.
Definitely. It makes it even more impressive. They lost all those great players, and they're still a great defensive team. And, you know, we're going to start with this D lineman here, Elijah, at number 4. And UW has 2 linebackers in the top 10 in sacks in the Pac-12 conference, and it's because of this guy. He may not have stats that jump off the page. 3.5 sacks is good, but he doesn't have to. He's getting double teamed up there up front. He's a big body guy, 311 pounds, 6'1", sort of immovable object out there, and he allows those double teams to happen to free up all the linebackers to have some great games.
Now, you've got a linebacker here and the great Buddha. So who's next on this list, or is it Gaskin, the running back?
Next, we're going to go with Gaskin.
Okay.
This guy really runs the offense. Browning, their quarterback, has been inconsistent this season. He's had some great games, but this guy has had consistent success on the ground. He's a smaller back, but he's such a strong player. You can't just bring one guy to tackle him. You have to wrap him up, no shoulder tackles. He has 8 TDs in the season, over 800 yards. He will be a 1,000-yard back if he continues having the success that he's had.
You know, the thing is about Gaskin, too, I mean, they have a nice change-up with him. He's shiftier and quicker into the hole. We saw that he does have a burst. Dwayne Washington not on this list, but he torched the Beavers in that game 2 years ago and is a very good running back. So even though they've struggled in offense, Gaskin does provide a true weapon, as does Washington, and the quarterback that isn't here either. So we're down to 2 defenders, Slade.
Defensive guys are always the best, you know that.
I gotcha.
We're going to go with Travis Feeney. He's a real special talent. He started at safety, is a really athletic kid. Second in the Pac-12 in sacks, he has 7, and he's 6'4", so he uses that length on his pass rush, but real athletic, you know, a smaller 226 pounds, just a leader on the defense. He's been named Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Week twice. He's a guy you really have to watch out for, and make sure you get a guy on him, or else we'll have our quarterback on the ground a lot this game.
And not only Travis Feeney, but Corey Littleton, another linebacker that's a big playmaker. So they've got a lot of guys like that, but maybe none quite like your #1 guy, one of the best in the league in the country, in Budda Baker.
And I completely agree with that statement right there. This guy is a special, special talent. He's been held back by injuries this season. That's why you see other corners and safeties on their roster with 2 and 3 interceptions. He just has 2 interceptions, but he'd have a lot more if he was able to play all the games like he wants to. He's an NFL talent. I mean, he will develop into something real special, and it's just don't throw the ball his way because it will go into his hands.
Well, those are 4 very special. I almost feel like Ed McMahon here. Everything you'd ever want to know.
And what's real scary, though, the only senior is this.
Yeah, no, they're
2 sophomores and a freshman.
And they have a freshman quarterback and running back, but they have an offensive coordinator, and our surprise, most dangerous weapon coming back to his old stomping grounds, a favorite son of Beaver Nation, the offensive coordinator for the Huskies, Jonathan Smith.
And you watch that offense when he used to run the Beavers, you know, when they absolutely dominated Notre Dame in that Fiesta Bowl. That team put Oregon State back on the map and really paved the way for when I came in to have the success that we had.
You know, and there we see Jonathan making plays in that memorable 2000 Civil War, throwing 2 first-quarter touchdown passes, and in fact, that 2000 team is going into the State of Oregon Sports Hall of Fame this week. So our congratulations to Jonathan, that 2000 team that finished ranked #4 in the country. And of course, the Beaver defensive coaches are going to do everything they can to knock Jonathan's offense off stride Saturday at Reser Stadium at 3 o'clock. But congratulations to Jonathan. Coming up, we are going to take a look at a very exciting season that's just getting underway. The OSU men's basketball team. In this confluence of seasons, let's talk some basketball. This was the media poll conducted, revealing Arizona picked to win the league, but the Beavers in that upper half in the Pac-12 picked to finish 6th in Wayne Tinkle's 2nd season, and certainly Wayne exceeded all expectations in year 1 and flirted with the NCAA tournament last year, still in the conversation with the NIT late. Just a year I described, I borrowed Wordsworth and C.S. Lewis and said we were surprised by joy throughout the year with those unlikely wins. But now, Lindsay, there's some real expectations for the
First
team.
of all, as you're talking about that, I'm just thinking about last year when we were sitting on this set and Lamar goes, Wayne for mayor. We were all on board
Or
with
even
that plan.
higher, yeah.
Yeah, you know, this is the year, right? Because here come these 4 freshmen, and they're supposed to be studs, and they're supposed to be like the saviors of the program, which was why last year was so surprising. But there's going to be a little bit of pressure on them. I mean, they haven't been to the NCAA tournament in a long time. So I think that there's a lot that can be gained from the freshmen. But hey, this is still Gary Payton II, Gary Payton
GP2.
GP2, whatever his name is today. It's still his team. Now, I think, and Lamar brought this up last year, chemistry is going to be huge because here come these awesome rookies, and you don't want to be giving your spot up if you're a senior. Like, hey, you surprised some people last year.
That's right, but you do want to win above all.
Absolutely.
And so those veteran guys, I think it actually fosters a great spirit of competition when the veteran guys say, I want to keep my minutes, but that makes them play more conscientiously and harder. I like it. I'm fine with
no,
it.
I do too. I do too. I think it's great, and I think that Tinkle is the right person to lead this program. I mean, I said that in like 2009. I have a text message that proves it. But I think that it's just that's something they have to be aware of is the chemistry issue, because they won last year partially because they decided to band together because everyone didn't think they could get it done, and they were like, hey, you know, to heck with all these outsiders, we're going to believe in each other.
Now, Slade, you love defense. The last segment, you know, when you were talking about defense proves it, and GP2, the best defender in the league last year, Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year.
He is. I love the way he plays, the intensity he plays with. And you were talking about chemistry. I think the easiest way to get chemistry in sports is through great leadership, and he's done that with this team. He's really taken the younger players under his wing. You go watch him at practice, and Coach will be getting on the younger guys, and Gary will take him aside and say, hey, little boy, it's okay. This is okay. But they have somebody that's an All-American, you know, that they can look up to, and I think that really builds this team and the chemistry they can develop.
He's a different type of leader than his dad. He's not as, you know, vocal, and he's not as harsh. He's not going to talk trash in the way that the original Gary Payton does. But I agree, he's very, very likable with his teammates.
Our own My own Lydia Rose Parker had an opportunity on Media Day to visit about GP2 with some of GP2's teammates.
Gary just, he brings that energy to the table, that defensive pressure, that length, that leadership. He's a guy that, is going to go out there. When you throw him in the game, he's going to make a difference on the court. That's a big thing that he brings to the table, be able to affect the game in so many different ways.
He's a great leader, very vocal, and helps the younger guys out just because, we're new, we're still learning things. And, he's very patient with us. He's a great defender. And so for us to go against him every single day, it helps our games as well. He brings a lot with his also athleticism, and things like that. He's a great overall player and, does many different things very well.
I know if I make a turnover or something and he's back on defense, 9 times out of 10 he's gonna block the guy's layup on a fast break. So that's a good thing to have on the team. One thing off the court that he's really good at is FIFA 16. I've been working on my FIFA skills myself, trying to get better so I could beat him because I think he's the best on the team right now at the game.
Well, it's all about competition, right? I mean, you got to be competitive in everything. And Stephen Thompson is certainly a born leader himself, but is deferring right now in all things FIFA, on the court, block shots to GP2.
FIFA is the most important.
Well, yeah, and clearly that's what
a lot of people are really obsessed with FIFA, I think.
But look at GP2's game, hugging his dad, and he wants to be part of a team that can get back to the tournament. His dad, of course, the player of the year in the nation the last time the Beavers went to the NCAA tournament. So GP2, Lindsay, is looking to, I think, to bookend that in his senior year.
Yeah, I don't think that he's a player of the year candidate nationally, but he is the best all-around player in the Pac-12. There is absolutely no doubt. Obviously, Arizona is loaded again. They got a lot of kids coming back. Cal is the 2-star freshman. But what Peyton can do on both sides of the ball is really impressive. And for as much as we talk about his defense, he is a tremendous off-ball defender.
Yes.
He has great anticipation skills. He always understands when to go double. He's a really good rebounder, which is strange for someone of his size, even though he is really athletic. But I'm not exactly comfortable with Stephen Thompson Jr. saying, yeah, if I make a turnover, he's going to clean it up on the other end. That's not a good reason to throw the ball away, just so we're clear.
Well, the thing, too, you're right about his rebounding. 4th in the league last year as a guard, the 4th leading rebounder in the league. Led the league.
There's no way that he should have that.
He reads the ball well. That's why he's a good off-ball defender and can get so many steals. He understands where the ball is going to go.
Is that a natural thing, or is that from his dad, from studying film and from knowing that?
I think he probably has. He has a very high basketball IQ,
yes.
But yeah, there's just a lot of natural gifts.
Speaking of good defense and rebounding, we've got to acknowledge a great basketball team at Oregon State, the OSU women's basketball team under Scott Rueck, Pac-12 defending champs, and picked to win it again and off to a great start.
And how about they're averaging 102 points per game? They look really good. They're top 10, number 7 in one poll, number 9 in the other poll. I went and watched them Monday night. Man, Mike, they move the ball really, really well. You want to talk about being an off-ball defender? It's tough to be an off-ball defender and guard Oregon State because they move it so well.
It's a loaded team. In fact, a lot of excitement about basketball at Oregon State. And as always, in some ways, the most exciting segment of our show, week to week, as Slade Norris goes into
I can't believe that.
the OSU Beaver store again.
I'm here at the OSU Beaver Store Kaiser Station location. We're playing UW this week, so on your way down to the game, drop by here and get your Beaver gear. Beaver Nation is wearing black. The Omni Heat Columbia Sportswear jacket, great choice. It's going to be cold. It's probably going to be wet. We're in Corvallis. We're in Oregon. Step over here. Speaking of winter, we've got basketball season coming up. And guys, gear up. Mike Parker told me that this is the best recruiting class Oregon State has ever had for basketball. So you got to start grabbing the jerseys, grab the warm-up gear. Anything you need for basketball season, we've got it right here. OSU Beaver Store. Fans start here.
One more time at Reser Stadium Saturday afternoon for the seniors, their last chance to play before the hometown fans. and certainly looking forward to going out on a good note. Now, the last time the Washington Huskies came to Reser Stadium, it was one of the more puzzling games that I've ever seen, in that Washington rolls up 69 points.
It was a long day.
It was, and it was, and as good as Washington is on defense and as many weapons as they have, and they have a lot of good players, they don't appear equipped quite yet to roll up that kind of number with a freshman quarterback who's done some great things, and Jake Browning has a bright future. But I expect the Beaver defense to play better and try to make some life difficult for this young man who has done a lot of great things and has shown those flashes throughout the year.
Yeah, I think that Jake Browning has a lot of potential. You know, flashes, again, there's that word. And Chris Peterson told reporters earlier this week, you know, at times our offense is impressive. At others, it's really, really frustrating to everybody involved. Browning is, you know, he's inconsistent, like most young quarterbacks, right? So he's not good in the fourth quarter for the most part. He has a 106.99 QB rating, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, but he's really good in the red zone. 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, QB rating of 169.78. But they are terrible at they give away leads, and they just give away the ball all the time in final quarters.
They had a 17-0 lead and were playing great football against Arizona State, and were not able to finish them off. But the thing
they've turned the ball over 8 times in the fourth quarter, and they've only forced 2 turnovers.
The Beavers, Slade, need to be in a position to make that fourth quarter a quarter where they have a shot themselves to be in the game in the fourth and give themselves a chance to, as Lindsey said, to turn that offense over.
You know, completely. They have to be able to just be in the game at that point, like you said, because if we aren't in the game, it's going to be too hard on that defense to try to catch up. So as long as they're staying competitive the entire way, Washington has a way of unraveling things at the end, and we can really take advantage of that. We just have to make sure that we're not just playing the first quarter like we have the last 2 games. We need to keep it close all the way up until the end there.
The one thing about Washington is, as much as we want the Beavers defense to wreak havoc with Browning and company, it's going to be great to see again, we mentioned him earlier, Jonathan Smith coming back to campus. Jonathan, the O coordinator, and like coordinators in any program everywhere, they come under a lot of criticism and heat. We hope that there'll be a little more of that for Jonathan next week to deal with it, but it's going to be great to see Jonathan. It'll be great to see all of you at Reser Stadium Saturday for the home finale at 3, and we hope that you will join us for another edition as we get into the Civil War week next week. That'll be next Saturday.
With a special guest.
We do? Well, then we'll all find out together, because I hadn't heard about that. See you next week on our Civil War edition of Talkin' Beavers. So long, everybody.